What is going on, Tank Tribe? This is Tyler, and we just finished right now recording the video for the Golden Wonder Killifish. So that's what we're going to be talking a little bit about today. This is podcast number 1. So I'm really excited to be doing this because, about a month ago, I checked back on one of my old videos that I had recorded just to do a quick little review on I think it was the ghost catfish. And sometimes you post a video on YouTube and you just kind of forget about it. And I came back and saw that it had a bunch of views. A lot of people commented, really liked it, and I thought, wow, like this is something that a lot of people are really enthusiastic and interested in. And so I thought, hey, like I know a lot about the aquarium fish. I've owned maybe just about every single freshwater aquarium fish that you can think of. So I thought, hey, why don't I go ahead and share the knowledge that I have and some of the things that I did right and some of the things that I did wrong with owning some of the freshwater fish out there. I mean, I've got my favorite fish, and we'll talk about that in later episodes. And today I just kind of wanted to just add a little bit more on top of the killifish because, sometimes in these videos you can only talk about so much, and you want to get all that info out as much as possible and, just deliver it quickly. But for those that want a little bit more in-depth information on the killifish, I got some really great news because today what we're going to be talking about is, a little bit of everything about my experiences of when I owned a killifish. We're going to be talking about some very horrific Reddit stories that I've been reading, doing some prior research on the killifish. We're going to talk about the endangered killifish that I was mentioning in the video. So I'm really excited to cover that. But first thing that I wanted to do was to give you guys a little bit of a tank update. Now, if you watch the videos, especially these first couple of videos that come out, you'll notice that the tank behind me in the video is pretty empty. Well, I, on a whim, just kind of saw that there was this, I think it was what's the brand? JBL, something like that. But it was a nano tank, and I never owned a nano cube before. I've had your standard rectangulars. I think I even had a bow front once at one point, but I've never owned a nano cube. And when I saw this one, it was posted online, somebody was selling it nearby. I was really, really excited to jump at that. And the reason why I was excited for the nano cube was because typically when you have those cubes, you have the ability to create more depth in the tank. So, it's like about, I want to say it's about 18 by 18. And so you're able to, create that depth, and there's a lot more places for the fish to kind of explore. It's not so much rectangular where the fish only can go from left to right instead of front to back. With the nano cube, you can go up and back. So I'm really excited for it. The only thing right now is that I've got a little bit of a long process to go because I'm cycling the water right now, and then I'm also in the works of actually producing my own live rock that I'm going to put into the tank. Now, it's a little unconventional, but what my plan is to create some live rock, curate it, and get it down to an optimal level to where it's not toxic to the fish, and then populate it with fish that resemble that of marine life. Something that I'll talk about in future episodes, and going on and on and on about this, is snorkeling. I really like to do some snorkeling. And there's a lot of different places that I've snorkeled at and visited, and there's just some places that really, really hold a special place in my heart with the experience that it was. So my goal is to try to replicate the rocks that I've seen. And so I'll probably have a whole entire video or a podcast episode dedicated to that. But that's what's going on with the tank behind me. So right now it's all under construction. So if you see it empty, that's what's going on. But as each video comes out, little by little, my plan is to do something a little bit different, so that this way, as you watch more videos, you can see it come together. So that is that's my tank update. All right, so let us talk about the Golden Wonder Killifish. So in the video we kind of already talked about how they come from the Sri Lanka area. Now, the one thing that you have to know about the Golden Wonder Killifish is that in the lakes of Sri Lanka, they don't really have rivers at really, really high currents. The Golden Wonder Killifish typically are in those lakes. And if you've ever been to a lake, you know that those currents aren't very rough or rugged or anything like that. So these killifish are used to, I don't know if you've ever like been to like the lakes or something like that and you've seen just pike just sitting at the top. I mean, the killifish, I don't know about you, but to me, they just look like a smaller version of a pike. And so if you've ever seen pikes in rivers, there's not much current going on. So that is something that, I really, really think that's, it stands out about the killifish, and what really makes it unique is because it does have that pike like resemblance, which is something that I didn't get to talk about in the video. So there was a couple of nicknames in my research that I was looking up. What's funny is that the Golden Wonder Killifish doesn't have too many nicknames. I did see some nicknames that, sometimes you Google these things and trying to find additional nicknames to what you already know. And some of these I kind of debunked and said, nah, these are not the actual nicknames. So I do know that from experience, they do have the nickname of top minnow. And it's funny because they almost kind of look like those golden minnows. I don't know what the actual term they're used for in the pet stores, but I know that this particular white cloud minnows, that's what they are. White cloud minnows. They hang around the top just like white cloud minnows. And if you look very closely at those white cloud minnows, if you ever looked at a wild killifish, not so much the Golden Wonder Killifish, but they look very, very similar. And they've even got like a similar golden color. I'm talking about the wild killifish in comparison to the white cloud minnow. They have a very, very similar body style. They hang around the top. So it's no wonder that the Golden Killifish's nickname sometimes turns out to be the top minnow. And like I said, one of the coolest things about them is that they kind of like skim the top of the water. Now, I don't know if you know much about this, but there's a particular fish that I really, really like. It's one of my favorite oddity fish out there, and it's called the African butterfly fish. And one of the things that it's really known for is for just like the Golden Wonder Killy is hanging out around the top of the tank. And part of the reason why they do hang around the top of the tank is because they're used to catching bugs that hit the water or mosquitoes that lay larvae in the surfaces of the surface or the water line. And so these killifish are used to grabbing anything that, grabbing anything that hits the water. It's almost similar to what's that one freshwater fish? I think it's called the arrow something. Let's look it up. Arrow freshwater fish. It's called the arrow darter, possibly. Anyways, it's the type of fish that can spit water to knock bugs into the water as they fall to their deaths. Very similar to that. They hang around the top in a very similar way. Pikes do the exact same thing, like I said. You see that sometimes from gar with alligator gar. So it's really, really cool the way that they hang out around the top. As far as breeding level, I actually did have the opportunity to have two killifish. Now, this was like really, really early in my fish keeping days, but I did have the opportunity to have two killifish actually spawn. And what's funny is that I was starting out, I was new, I was a rookie at this, and when I had these two killifish spawn, I was so excited that for basically nothing, like they spawned and had about, I don't know, I would say close to around 12 to 15 fry, and I was really, really excited. But one of the things that I forgot was that these killifish sometimes they can be very, very carnivorous, and they'll even eat their own babies. It's probably why they're endangered in the first place, because they keep eating their damn babies. But yeah, it's crazy because I really, really was hoping that I would have been able to keep those killifish, but I come back maybe like 2 days later, check on the tank, and where are all the fry? They're all gone. And I kept them in a breeder tank, and I was, the only culprits that I could point to were the two parent killifish. So that was something that I learned very early on. I did find that it was relatively easy for them to be able to breed. So, it didn't take much effort. I do remember having the temperature of my water at a higher temperature, not for the killifish, but because I was actually trying to breed guppies at the same time. And so when I was trying to breed those guppies, I rose the temperature up a little bit higher to get those guppies in the mood to spawn. But what ended up happening is, sure, I got the guppies to do their thing, but I also noticed that my female killifish was pregnant. So that's what caused me to move the both of them into the breeder tank. So I thought that was a lesson well learned early on in my fish keeping days. As far as like the colors go, it's so cool to see some of these killifish colors. I mean, I know we're talking about the Golden Wonder Killy, but if you do any research outside of just the Golden Wonder Killy, you'll see that they come in so many different colors. In fact, one of my favorite killifish has this like blue, red, orange, yellow, like sea green color, and it's just like a magnificent color. It's actually one of the shortest living fish. I think it's called the annual killifish. One of the shortest living fish in the freshwater aquarium trade. I think they live less than, it's got to be less than 11, 10 months or something like that. That's their lifespan, and that's if you can keep them happy and healthy and water conditions are great. Like a 5 year living platy is like a 1 year living killifish. So these things are used to, if with novice owners, they'll usually die within 3 months of ownership, or if not sooner. So if you can get that killifish out to like 11 months, 12 months, you did a good job. I haven't heard much about them living past 1 year. So really, really, really beautiful looking fish if you ever get a chance to look at it. The lifespan of those two killifish that I had, they only spawned one time, but I do remember having them for about a year and a half. And I know their average lifespan is between 2 to 3 years. So like I said, I was very, very new to the fish keeping hobby when I started out. So there's probably a lot more that I could have done in order to extend their lives out. I didn't realize that they were very carnivorous fish. I didn't realize that they needed such a high protein diet. So that probably contributed to them not making it even to the 2 year mark. I was feeding flakes and pellets, but I was really neglecting on the bloodworms and the brine shrimp and the daphnia and things like that. And that's what the killifish really like. They like those insects. They like worms. They like meatier diets. Not even just to keep them healthy, but that's just what they prefer. So that was one thing that I had really learned early on. Now, it's the cool thing is that when you get a bunch of killifish, they're so cool when they swim at the top of the water line. But the bad part is that you have to have so many of them together to keep them happy, because they're not schooling fish. They don't do like your normal schooling like you might get with like a glass catfish or other schoolers like danios maybe. But the killifish, they like to be around their kind. They don't have this formation that they swim in like I said, like with the glass cats, but they have this like tendency to want to be around other killifish. They almost like form this triangular shape. If they do any kind of formation, they have this like triangular shape, and it's almost weird to look at, because one will kind of dart towards the middle, and then another one will dart away, and then another one will dart kind of where the killifish just left, and they'll kind of stay in this like triangular shape. I don't know if it's just coincidence and noticing it, or if it's an actual thing that they do, but I thought it was pretty cool to see that. But yeah, it does suck that you do have to have sometimes 3 to 4 of them at the same time. And like I said, the killifish's price range, it's such a huge price range. You can get them at your like big box retailers for $5 each, but then there's also private pet stores that I've seen selling them for $20 each. And it just kind of blows my mind, because I'm like, wow, why the difference? Are the suppliers that difficult to get in contact with? Do the big box retailers control most of the supply? I mean, I just don't understand why such a huge range. Anyways, that was one of the things that I noticed when I had them myself. So yeah, so I don't know if we touched on this, but a cool fun fact was that the killifish, the word kilde, is Dutch for small creek or puddle. So when we say killifish, it comes from kilde fish, which is a fish from a small creek or a puddle. Now, in the wild, actually, most of these killies, they're tiny. They're tiny little guys. But the Golden Wonder, surprisingly, is one of those bigger ones. But that's because that's done by design. The Golden Wonder Killifish is selectively bred for that coloration and for that length. Otherwise, they wouldn't be that impressive of a fish. So it's really cool that they bred them in the early 19, I think it was in the early 1900s when the killifish became really, really popular in Europe. I think it was in Europe. Might have been. I'm almost sure it was Europe, and they selectively bred them for that golden color, and for a larger size. If you look at some like wild killies in Sri Lanka, India, if you ever see a couple, there's a couple pictures out there on the internet of them. But these wild killies, like they're nothing special really. I mean, as far as their coloration goes, they're your typical silvery looking lake fish, and they're not anywhere near the size of the Golden Wonder Killie. I mean, the Golden Wonder Killie gets, I think, upwards of around like I've heard of them getting to around like 3 to 4 inches. But in the wild, these killifish, actually, I take it back. I think the wild killifish they can get somewhere around 6 inches. But yeah, I'll have to do more research on that. But all I know is that from personal experience, and that's what we're going to segue into, is some of these horror stories that I've been seeing on Reddit. The killifish, the Golden Wonder killifish, isn't always the most amazing fish to keep around. I mean, like they're advertised as community fish, but I've heard some horror stories, and we're going to get into these right now. I've heard some horror stories of the killifish eating all of the neon tetra, eating all of the ghost shrimp. So here's one guy from about a year ago. He said, I had one of these once. I called it the cursed killifish. Had it in a 30-gallon with a gourami, some cherry barbs, and some danios. I saw it try to eat one of my cherry barbs once. So I put in another tank with patties, I'm sure he means platies, and black skirt tetras. I thought they would be safe, but I was wrong. It killed one of the platies and I caught it trying to fit its head down its throat. After that, I put a oh man, this guy's English. I put it a 10-gallon all by itself. Okay, so he put the killifish in a 10-gallon by itself. Came home one day and it had somehow jumped out through the opening where you put food in. Beautiful fish, but I want to wait a while before I start to consider getting one again. Yeah, no, the thing is like if you get these fish jumping out of your water, it's usually because the water conditions are not that great. I mean, think about it. If you were in a burning building and you were suffocating, like don't you want to stick your head out and of the window and get some fresh air? It's the same way that it works with these killifish. I mean, I'm not saying that the water conditions were bad. They could just be natural jumpers, but in the past whenever I had fish kind of jumping out of the water that are not known jumpers, it was usually because those water conditions were bad. It was something that had to do with the pH level, water temperature wasn't great, too high of salinity, too low of salinity, something like that. But yeah, I mean, I've heard more than one occasion of these killifish trying to jump out of the tank, and definitely on more than one occasion of them trying to eat some of the smaller fish inside of the tank. All right, let's see what this guy says. I have one in a small community tank with 4 glow light tetras, 2 fancy cobra guppies, and a baby Chinese algae eater. Going on 3 months, and it hasn't attempted to eat any of the smaller fish. He does eat, though. He will also let you know when you haven't fed him yet. He'll dead ass stare at you. Then, when he sees the food package come out, he'll freak. Yeah, that's characteristic of most fish, right? They will absolutely let you know when they are hungry. They'll swim up to the tank. They'll let you know when it's time to feed them. All right, a couple more. All right, this guy looks like he might have had a good experience. They're beautiful fish, but I learned my lesson. Oh boy, here we go. But I learned my lesson after I put 2 of them in my community tank, and they decimated all my other fish and shrimp. Ah, see, they killed the shrimp. Then one killie ate the other one, and then it just up and died the next day, thankfully. Never again. They would be fine on their own, though. Oh boy. So this kind of contradicts the idea that you need to have 3 of them. So I almost wonder if you're gonna get a group of 3, maybe you should get 1 male and 2 females, because we don't know if these were 2 males that went and killed each other. Probably want to go like, like probably just do it like you would with beta fish. Just if you're gonna have 1 male, just have the rest of them as females. Alrighty, last one. I have a male and a female pair in my community. See, that's a good idea right there. With a rubbermouth pleco, a shoal of bloodfin tetras, and a crebensis, and they actually get along great. All right. However, when I first got the pair, I was also looking to get a school of dithers, so I got zebra danios the same day. The dude at the local fish store, who I call Stony Baloney, put them all. What a crazy name! Who I call Stony Baloney. I really hope that's not his real name. Put them all in the same bag. Since I initially planned on putting them in the same tank, I didn't make a fuss. However, once I got to the checkout, the male already had a danio in his mouth. Wow. He didn't even care. He just scooped. He just got scooped up and thrown in the bag. He was still going to eat. They're pigs. So the remaining danios went in my guppy tank. So obviously we got a mix here. We've got some stories of aggressive ones. We have stories of ones that are, for the most part, peaceful. But just on this thread alone about the, Golden Wonder Killifish, you're kind of 50-50 on them. So it's tough, because you don't want to throw, if it's a peaceful killifish, if it's a peaceful Golden Wonder, you don't want to throw it in a semi-aggressive tank because, if it's peaceful, it's going to get stressed out even if they're with their own kind. At the same time, you don't want to put them in a community tank because if they do happen to be the ones that are semi-aggressive, then they're gonna hurt all of your other fish. So I guess the best thing to do would be if you had a community tank as well as a semi-aggressive tank, you can kind of start the killie out in maybe the community tank, and if he starts pestering the other fish, I don't know, maybe just move him over into the semi-aggressive tank. But I would never want to put a Golden Wonder Killifish in an aggressive tank. Like I would avoid, putting him with bala sharks or let's see, or any kind of cichlid. You shouldn't be putting cichlids with anything else anyways. But yeah. So, yeah, it's kind of a tough one because you never know what kind of killifish you're going to get, right? So anyways, that's it what we got for today. Like I said, this is just a little podcast to just kind of expand on the fish. If you're looking to expand your knowledge and, hear a little bit more accounts of other pet ownership stories in relation to the actual fish that we're talking about, this is what this podcast is for. And then I'll also be sharing a lot more stories on the tank updates. I'll go into some other personal stories as they become relevant during the type of podcast that we do. But I really want to thank you for listening. I'm just getting started, so I apologize if things were a little messy and kind of all over the place. But hopefully, as time goes on and we get a lot more consistent, hopefully these podcasts will get a lot more better, a lot more informative. And if you haven't already, make sure that you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm also on all major social media platforms at Aquarium Fish Reviews. So make sure you follow me on those other channels because sometimes I deliver you guys content that is not on sometimes my other platforms. So make sure you're following me on all of them so that you can get all Aquarium Fish Review type content for your daily fish needs. All right, I'll talk to you guys soon.